Okay, welcome to another Landscape Committee meeting. This is our third quarter committee meeting, and we've got a good chunk to go through and go over, but not too much has changed drastically other than the fact that we're in summer months. We're experiencing rain finally, and so we're going to see some growth and things like that over the next month or two. But beyond that, this is really, I would like to just kind of take a look at all the different areas that we focus on as a unit. What we can maybe work towards for the rest of the year, being that this is the third quarter, halfway through the year. So, there's, I don't think any particular projects other than ones we've already discussed, but I want to touch on those and just kind of make sure that we're all on par with what we understand is happening, who we're working with, and what we can try and create over the next couple months, as I said. All right, so let's go ahead and I'll do a roll call here, and actually I'd like for everyone to just kind of say their name out loud so that people will know that there's actual people in this space and I'm not just pretending to talk to people. So we'll go ahead and just go one at a time, but Dan, can we start with you? Just say your name and we'll move on.
Dan Dunn.
Dan Dunn, all right.
Tony Lobiaco.
Thank you.
Jermaine Heck.
Thank you.
Paula Colson.
Thank you, Paula. All right. And Danny Eisenstadt. So we've got 5 committee members here tonight, which is great. Thank you all for coming out during the rains. I really appreciate it. And all right, let's move on to open issues. Okay, so starting with our landscape company, CPM. So the first thing I put on here is new branch manager. So I didn't put any details here because I also do not have the specifics yet. What I do know is John Johnson, who has been our branch manager, he's going to be moving on to probably other properties, and we're going to be getting a gentleman named Nelson, who I have met. I don't know his last name, but I met him when we actually initially walked the High Meadows berm to consider what would be at that time an enhancement project, but we've changed to now a remove and replace. Dan, you're involved in some of that right now, just a matter of removing dead plant matter. He was a part of that walk along. From my initial interaction with him, he seemed like a really good guy, energized, cares about the details, and I look forward to having him sort of be on our team with Eliseo, who's our account manager. So what I want to do is just get in contact with him over the next week and try and set up an opportunity for CPM to do what would be like an annual Q&A with our community, just to show face again, have homeowners come in, ask and answer questions, and I would like to partner them up also with Coastal Pest for that evening, so we have 2 vendors, the 2 majors for like landscaping overall, and that way we can get a good attendance in here, and I think it'll give us an opportunity to meet Nelson and he can introduce himself. So that's what I meant by new branch manager, and we'll share more information on that as it comes. Jody, the arborist at CPM, him and I have been in communication. This week he is going to be working on getting me what would be the complete total of common area trees that would be involved in a tree trimming project. So this is common area trees, and we have a proposal, actually kind of a split, 2 proposals that together would be the initial tree trimming for our community this year based on the budget we have, and then we were going to break it up into phases over the next year or 2. My question was, well, based on this first phase, what's left over and what would that cost us? So that's what he's going to get us. So once I have that, I'll share it with the committee, and if it is something that we can do within just 2 phases, great. Maybe we take the first phase this year and we do the second one next year when our budget sort of becomes the new budget, and then we're done, and obviously we would have to do regular tree trimming for like holiday lighting and things like that. So the timing of that will vary, but that's what we want to wait and get.
So, question on this proposal that we got for those 2 areas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 1 or 2 areas, but there seem to be 2 different proposals here.
Yes.
Is that in the budget, the board approved, we're able to go move forward with that?
It has not been approved because what we still want to do is just get some comparison bids on that particular proposal. I think it totaled around, I don't want to state that, but the total itself was under our budget. So the question would be all right, is there any sort of big cost savings for us to see other vendors and if they can do the same level work at a discount? If not, if it's not a big difference, then we're going to go with our current vendor, CPM. So that's kind of where we're at with it. But because we're under budget, I'm curious how many trees are left. Can we fit all of those into our budget? So what are we missing?
How much was the budget, do you recall?
I believe it was around 35,000 for, I don't know if it was line items for tree trimming, or if it was sort of like enhancement or maintenance or something like that, but,
Because this is about 26,
right.
and probably it'd be at least that much for doing the rest of it, maybe, wouldn't it?
That's why I'm gonna have him get us back to that, because if it ends up becoming kind of the total, then that would be better to get it all knocked out. So, yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Question, is that separate from what you said needed to be done for the holiday lighting by September 1st? Or are they?
Those trees are included in that, and we're gonna time it out so that it happens before the holiday lighting. And when we get to that topic, I'm gonna let Tony speak on holiday lights because he's been involved in that.
Okay.
But yes.
So it'll come around that, everybody can, the vendors can do it if we,
Oh yeah. We're gonna schedule this nicely this time around. It won't be as tight as it was.
great, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, Danny, before we leave CPM, there's been some expression of dissatisfaction recently about the CPM, mowing
Yes.
effort. And is that something that we'll address with the new branch manager, the Nelson guy, or we already talked to the existing guy?
Yes. So I haven't spoken to Nelson yet, but I know Eliseo, our account manager, is well aware of the problems that have happened. So it seems that a lot of it had to do with management of these teams. The quantity of team members who were on site for some of those mows was lower than they had in the past. And that was causing them to take longer on those mow dates, which is why you saw them on a Saturday, right, to try and complete it. So that showed up on our radar pretty quickly. I mean, there were a few people who had reached out to me, but also it was becoming obvious with our property manager, Courtney, that there was something going on. And that's when she checked in with Eliseo and John Johnson, and something was, I guess, changing. So we're on top of that, and it should be getting back up to speed with where we can expect the service to be. So mowing should improve, especially with the summer. That's going to be really important. But yes, it has not been missed that there was a lag in, we'll call it quality.
Yeah, okay. But certainly want to bring it to this Nelson's attention, unless
Oh,
he's already aware of it.
He's got to be aware of it. I mean, he's coming in. My thinking is that Eliseo, our account manager, has already been talking to him since they're going to be working directly with each other.
Yeah.
But I can't confirm what they've discussed. Courtney being on vacation, I'm going to wait until she gets back to find out what she's already learned with Nelson, and maybe even Shane, who is Shane Humble, who's the president. If he's already talked to her about this transition, and I imagine so. So those are the things we have to figure out as we start to get to know who Nelson is, who he's going to be for us as a branch manager. So yes. Okay, so we also have open proposal for the High Meadows berm remove and replace. On that, in the sort of new business, really I want to find out where we're at with that, because I know that the adjustment to that project brought us within budget, and so I don't know that there should be any holdup on an approval from the board. It might just be getting all the board members to do that, and so I'll check with Courtney when she gets back, but ultimately we should be able to get that done this year, so that'll be good.
Do you know if they rescheduled the board meeting, that they,
There's no official date yet, but yes, they're rescheduling it. I think what they are trying to get accomplished is the new reserve study. Because once that new reserve study is done, that's a topic that they want on their agenda. And I think there was a delay in getting it to where they wanted it to be, or maybe it just wasn't ready by that board meeting, and there was maybe only 2 items on that agenda. So this will be a bulkier board of directors meeting with that in there. Also gives us and the other the social and rec committee time to sort of recommend projects that we would like to be considered as part of the reserve study. And that's one of the topics I put on here towards the end, like new business. Some of those things we can consider as a committee that we might want to suggest. Like, hey, if you're looking at where you're going to allocate funds in the reserve, here are some things to consider for landscape. So that's one of the reasons that I think it's being rescheduled, but I don't have a date yet. You had a question?
Yes, when you speak about the High Meadow burn and removal, are you speaking about the burn area from the fire of the RV?
Berm, B-E-R-M, and that's the long stretch of land on High Meadows.
Right, but aren't they going to develop, widen that highway and?
Yeah, but that's long term. They're still doing, studies and.
That's probably 5 years down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
For us, it's our first impression of our neighborhood right now, right?
Yes.
So we just want to bring it up to standard. And right now, the dead stuff is obvious, and we want to get rid of that and replace it with new, growing plant matter that matches what is next to it or was there. And then as we get more funds, we can enhance that area. I would like to get more color in there, create sort of a really nice rhythm, along that stretch of road. And I think it would just look really nice.
But what about, are we getting some money from the insurance company of the person whose vehicle died on that?
That was already done, taken care of. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And the bushes were replaced, so you can see them. They're kind of like the unkempt hedges that are in front of that wall, but I guess they have to grow to a certain height and then you can trim them. Okay. And we are on a weekly mow schedule for the summer. So Dan, your point about the quality, I think getting to know and being in communication with Nelson is going to help us keep them accountable in this transition. But also I know Eliseo has reacted like we've reacted to the dip in quality. So he was probably the first, I think, to bring it to our attention that something is happening. He's not particularly happy with the setup that he was left with for a week or two. He doesn't know why it happened that way, but he had very little control at that moment. Him having a say in it actually helped kind of bring it all around, and now we should be back on schedule with everything that we need, not these like kind of 3-day mows. It should be really within 2 days. So, okay, moving on. Coastal pest control. So we were supposed to have a pest control and nutrient application done in the month of May, but because of the weather and the fires, that application never happened. So now the question is when is it going to be rescheduled? If it's not going to be rescheduled and they're going to go to what would be the next application, do we get a reimbursement for that? And Courtney's already on top of that, so she's working to get us an answer there. Sullivan Pump and Electric. As of right now, we just want to find out what caused our pump to not prime. This is a month ago when this happened. So initially we thought, well, let's get Sullivan back out here to look at it, but they were just here and they had fixed what was already a faulty valve. The question became, is it another faulty valve leading out to a different area? We were unable to determine that with our maintenance tech, George. So I believe he was going to have Doug, our irrigation guy, take a look with him last Saturday when he was on site. I don't know if that happened, but they were going to try and figure it out first for us. If they could identify it themselves, great. That might save us some money. And then we just asked Sullivan to come out and repair this particular item. If not, we have to have Sullivan come out, take a look. It doesn't mean we have a problem with our pump functioning. It means we have to manually prime the pump if it's not already primed. And that only happens when we turn it off. There's no need for us to turn off the entire system just to not let the sprinklers go. That's a timing thing. They could turn that off, you know, with the computers. So I think that's where we're at, right? Am I correct? Did I miss anything?
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, I can also add a little bit to that. On one day last week, Frank Day, myself, George, Courtney, spent some time out in the pump house, and Frank thought, and George figured there should be a check valve somewhere in the line, you know, between the pump and the source of the water, but couldn't identify one anywhere. Frank thought there was one, we didn't see one anywhere, we kind of tracked down the line. So they were gonna have, George said he was gonna have to ask Sullivan to come out here and see if there is a check valve in there. That could be the cause of losing the prime, or this check valve bad, wherever it is. So, you know, I know George is gonna do some follow-up on that since Courtney has been gone. I haven't been in touch with her, of course, so I'm not sure what the follow-up's been on that.
Okay.
But I think that Reed, like you said, is probably also a resource that ought to be taken a look at, and I think he probably already has if he was here Saturday.
Do you know exactly what does a check valve do for us?
Well, if the water's, once the water's turned off, it prevents the water from draining back into the lake.
Okay.
So it doesn't lose the prime. That's the purpose of the check valve, so it doesn't lose the prime.
Okay. So, all right.
So they thought it might be related to the bad check valve, or is there a check valve in there?
Okay.
So probably that reads George to follow up with him and see if they ever determine with Sullivan, you know, if there was one, or if there is it faulty?
Okay.
Kind of related to that, what you just said, a little bit right before that. You said that the computers can turn off the water,
Yes.
and that won't cause any issues.
No, it won't shut the entire pump off. It'll just stop basically the time of the sprinklers going off.
And with all this water and Courtney being gone, are we possibly thinking about?
So George can do that for us, and yes, he is
Yeah.
already organized to do so.
And letting people know that, like, we can send out a e-blast to everybody saying.
That I think
we'll be off and
is
so-
is a great idea. I know Courtney mentioned she was going to be able to do certain things like that. I don't know if she's gotten that out yet, but I'll reach out. I'll see if she can help with that. If not, maybe there's something we can do. I can just put on Facebook and
Sure.
listen. Some people
Just
won't.
let anybody know.
Yeah.
Spread the word.
Okay. All right. Anything else with the pumps? Yes. Okay. All right. Advanced restoration ecology. This is preserve maintenance. Okay. So the phase 1 of the cleanup has been deemed complete. There was a question that came from a homeowner actually this morning. I reached out to Drew. Dan, you saw this email, right? Or did you not see it?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to kind of discuss that a little bit.
Yeah. So phase 1 was identified in the maps. So if anybody's curious, that email's gone out many, many times in the weekly updates and even separate. So it identifies the area that will be covered inside of phase 1, and then you also have phase 2 and 3. So right now, all they're doing is really cleaning up. So they're spraying and cutting as much invasive plant matter as they possibly can. And then they're going to go back through after they complete, and they're going to go right into maintenance of these areas. So my question, I'm sure you have the same question, is what does completion of phase 1 cleanup look like, right? I mean, I think some people are seeing it from inside the community, but what we'd like to do, and Drew seems very open to it, is to do a drive-through, like a ride-through, if possible, to some areas, take a look and see what was accomplished, what that looks like, and then what we can expect with phase 2 and phase 3. So what is the question that you have about the email he sent?
One of Drew's comments on here says that there is no exotic removal in the contract as discussed earlier.
Yeah, he's talking about actually physically.
What is the purpose of him being here?
No, so it's the physical removal from the property. It's a spray or kill and leave.
Okay,
So that's what he's doing. He's spraying or cutting, and the dead or sprayed plant species is left there to sort of go into the soil and be part of the ecology. Decompose. Yes.
but I guess I know what phase one covers, you know, physically covers, and I happen to be in phase one, where my property is, and I mean, they're next to me, and there's some things that to me should have been done in phase one in there that haven't been touched.
So it hasn't been like sprayed or cut, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
So you know, like you said, we ought to do a walkthrough with
Yeah.
him, or have him explain to us what exactly he is doing, so I guess I need to be better educated on what he's doing.
Yeah, we all do. I mean,
Yeah.
this is our first time, doing this particular thing with a vendor. So I think it's very important for us to get out there, be more well informed as a committee, as homeowners, and then we can share that with everyone else. I was unable to respond as you saw, but I wanted, Drew to give us some insights into, what exactly is she talking about? Is there something we should take a look at? He seemed unconcerned that, there was something that wasn't complete. He thinks she's looking at possibly phase 2, maybe the edge, who knows? But I think if we can go out there with him and identify, let's say, all right, is this phase 1 or is this phase 2? Is it too close to matter? Like, are you gonna hit it in phase 2 even if it's in phase 1? Are we kind of micromanaging too early? Those are the kinds of things I wanna try and figure out.
Are you gonna schedule something with him then to come out, and then let me know when he's,
Absolutely, we're all gonna do it together, and this neighbor wants to be part of it, which I think would be great too. Let's have an extra set of eyes out there, someone who's seeing things from a different
I
perspective.
mean, someone else, other than me, would probably be more familiar with what's, an exotic plant that needs to be
Yeah,
sprayed.
me too.
I mean, I see a lot of hanging dead vines on some of the foliage in the preserve,
Yeah.
but, there's a major vine that's choking on a pine tree in the preserve next to me, and it hasn't been touched. So we need to clarify what his mission is too, exactly
Yeah.
what he's doing in these phases.
Agreed, yeah.
Besides the driving around, was there anything that he said that they would do for us in the contract? Like, when it was being presented, here's how we'll prove what we did? Like, is this maybe, like you said, overkill, but do they provide drone pics or anything like that? Because, who's gonna go into, like, the deep interior of,
Yeah, I believe, I don't remember exactly, but I believe he had said there was sort of a report out, and I don't know if he's doing it by phase or what. But again, he's quick to respond. He responded to my email almost immediately. So we can communicate with him and just say, hey, is there something that we can share with everybody in terms of what was accomplished prior to us going out there and seeing it with our own eyes? And then also, when can we schedule a drive around?
The other question that I have is Lindy from the county going to come back in behind him and see, what he's done, or if he's met her expectations of what the county requires?
Yes, he actually, I think, orchestrates that. So he'll have her come out here and she will take a look and confirm that everything is under the maximum allotted amount of invasive species, which he says his goal is to get to near 0. But they give us like a 10%,
Yeah, I think that's wishful thinking, but it's a good goal.
I mean, I'll take that as a goal any day, but yeah.
Yeah. So then he'll let us know when Lindy's going to be out here to do the inspection. We ought to be involved in that too.
Absolutely.
For education, for us, if nothing else.
Yeah, no, we want to be involved in that for sure. And it will be, well, one, we're going to want to sit down with Drew once he's completed all 3 phases of the cleanup, right? Because after each phase is completed, they'll continue cleaning up in the next phase, but then they'll start maintenance on that phase that they had completed cleanup on. So maintenance being that there additional spraying, cutting, things like that, which is going to be regular for us, I think, for a time frame. And then they will do what they did in phase 1 in that next phase, and it'll just kind of like domino like that. That's how it's played out. So I don't know when the inspection would need to take place, but I imagine after phase 3 is done. because if he's in maintenance, he's already completed what would be the clean out of invasive species to that percentage point. That's my understanding. So, yeah. But we will definitely confirm all that. All right. Phase 2 is actually supposed to begin next week, pending weather, which I believe would start on Monday. So, but again, pending weather.
Courtney put out a map of what phase 2 would involve,
Yes.
so
Yes.
the community should have an idea, where they're gonna be.
Yes. Yeah, and I believe it's going to cover a lot of like around key deer, if I'm correct. Which is-
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Lakes and wetland maintenance. Okay. So our new maintenance vendor for our lakes is the Lake Doctors, and our previous contract or connection with Solitude that has come to completion, and so we can expect the Lake Doctors to start their services by the end of this month, I believe. I don't have the official date, but what we're trying to schedule, and actually Bruce, our lead member for lake maintenance, is already in communication with Phil, the representative over there, about getting together, doing a ride through, just to look at the current health of the lakes prior to their first service. I think at that point also we'll know who our tech will be, like what his name will be, who he will be for us as the maintenance vendor, and then we'll have them come out here and do a meet and greet. And I have it already scheduled with Phil, who's going to come out and speak on behalf of the Lake Doctors on Wednesday, July 24th at 7 p.m. He is going to be doing that in concert with our irrigation tech, Doug Reed, who I'd like to have come out here, show his face again, kind of re-educate people about his services, answer questions, things like that for about an hour. So Doug Reed will be 6 to 7 on that day, and then from 7 to 8, maybe 8:30, Phil will, introduce himself, his company, and let everybody know what he's going to be doing for us as the Lake Doctors. Any questions about the lakes? No? Okay. All right, and I kind of coupled Doug Reed into that, but the next wet check is going to be Saturday, not this Saturday, but Saturday, June 20th. It's going to cover all of Key Deer, including Kinglet Way and the entrance there. And as I just mentioned, he's scheduled for his annual Q&A. And we want to do this with like all our vendors. It's just kind of an annual vendor Q&A, just to kind of refresh, show their face, get to know who we're partnered with, and who's taking care of us. Yeah.
Saturday is the 22nd. Sorry. Just in case anybody's. Thursday is June 20th.
It's
Just,
the 22nd. Okay.
just.
I'll correct that then. This is more for us anyways, because
Fine.
nothing's been announced, but
No,
yes, if that's,
Never.
no, it's good, because I need to make that change anyways before I create any announcement. Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay. And I think that's about it for open business. All right, any questions about what was discussed? Any additions? No? Okay, let's get on to new business. So we have already sort of that annual vendor Q&A with Doug. We want to do the same thing as I just mentioned with CPM and Coastal. So I am going to work with Courtney to try and schedule them for a Wednesday, possibly in August would be a good time to do that. And that way we get to kind of chat with those guys again. And hopefully we can, with both of them here, we can get enough attendance and we can announce it early enough. Okay, then recommend any projects that should be considered as part of the reserve study. So here, I tossed this in here only because I only heard, because I asked the same question you did, Dan, like when is the rescheduled board of directors meeting? So my understanding is that the reserve study is an important factor for that next meeting. As a committee, we can maybe influence what they consider or think about when doing the reserve study by presenting things that we need for our community inside the umbrella of landscaping. So, I talked about the remove and replace, but, we already have a proposal for enhancement of that. And there was a kind of a design, there were plants chosen. To me, I was out there, I was with Michelle, I was with Courtney, even George was out there with us, and Nelson, who is our new branch manager. We all kind of collaborated and came up with what I thought was a really neat initial design plan. I wanted to try and get somewhat of a mock-up done to share with you guys before anything was approved. But that's one thing I would like to consider for next year, and it's not going to be inexpensive, So I would like to propose with visuals, with numbers, hey, can we take a look at this? I don't know if it needs to come out of the reserve or if it's something we can budget for, but either way, it needs to be considered for the next year, and make sure that's part of the conversation.
Is it appropriate to ask what something like that might?
So in the proposal, it gives us that, and the only thing is I don't know what the number looks like when you remove the remove and replace project. So if we can deduct whatever that is, I'd have to know what's left over. I just haven't done that math, but we can ask CPM to do that for us. Should be a big deal. And if anything, I think Nelson was the one who helped create that, so it'd be a good opportunity, just first thing to work on with him.
So Danny, this proposal we got from CPM, Courtney and I rode the berm a couple of weeks ago, and she was very familiar with all the plans that were in that initial proposal, what was really excess that didn't need to be done. She pared it down considerably. And then this new proposal that you sent out to us, I guess, represents that pared down version. Is that something they're going to go ahead and do? That's been approved? That's a fait accompli, or is this still in discussion?
It's open-ended because I don't know if it's been approved. I know that it should be approved because it's within the budget, and it was what we decided to do because the initial proposal was out of budget, right? We just didn't have it for this year to do that full enhancement project. So I'm gonna follow up on that actually and find out where we're at. I don't know if Courtney will be able to assist me with that, but I can reach out to Michelle, who's our lead board member for our committee. So she may or may not know where that is, what stage it's in.
Okay.
But can anyone think of anything else that would be maybe a costly but necessary? Yeah.
I actually do, and it's a result of a meeting that Frank Eddy and Courtney and I had last week, and it involved the irrigation system. One of the things that we sat down with Frank about was, what was in the lawsuit that included irrigation, and as it turns out, it's zero. So, but what the claims we made against Fortin and the other Starwood, I guess, was for over $1 million. And that $1 million involved redoing a lot of the irrigation system, the wiring and some of the piping and valves and that type of thing. So I really think that that's an issue that, as the landscape committee, we ought to be taking a look at and making some plans for, present to the board about. So, if we identified $1 million worth of improvements that needed to be upgraded on the irrigation system, and the judge just threw that out, totally threw it out, claimed there was case law that didn't allow us to make claims on irrigation, I don't know all the details, but anyway, the fact remains, we still have those problems with the irrigation system. And Doug Reed acknowledged that. I had a little discussion with him about that too, and he said that one of the things they had talked about doing at one point in time was to take small sections and just maybe go through and do those upgrades if necessary, like maybe take a short street kind of an estimate of what it would cost, but it's a major expense for the whole community over the long haul. It's gonna have to be addressed. I think that's something we ought to bring up to the board and say, you know, what about that $1 million claim that we made against Starwood and Horton that never got addressed?
Yeah.
And Doug's pretty familiar with it too, Doug Reed, so, you know, he could address that issue, I think, pretty significantly too, if we wanted to, you know, have more detail to present to the board.
And maybe that's a great question to bring forward to him when he does his Q&A, you know, so he can explain a little bit more. We can kind of have that recording so that we can reference it when we're doing the research and stuff like that.
Yeah, they have him do a little presentation on that as a part of his.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
do that.
Yeah.
It's not before.
Yeah, I think the future of our irrigation is very important. What he's been doing has helped a lot, I know, tremendously because of the age of our irrigation and kind of where he believes it's at. But yeah, we don't want to bandage it for too long.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think if there's anything else. I mean, we really did, in my opinion, a great job of, you know, collecting, I think, a strong assortment of vendors, you know, to help us kind of get things back to where we need it to be. It's been about, you know, a year and a half, we'd say, since kind of all this started. And I don't want to get complacent. Personally, and I'm speaking for myself, I found for this committee, I've not been as engaged or hands-on with each vendor or with Courtney in that matter. It can be a lot, but it hasn't been necessary. You know, I think what I want to do now is just reconnect with each one and see where we have come, you know, in each maintenance portion. Now with Lakes, that's just going to start up. But we've been with CPM for a while now. You know, with the new manager, that's going to be something we can address with him, and with Jim over at Coastal. You know, that's a long-term project anyways. We're not going to see a ton of, you know, growth and transformation with fertilization till after a few years. But it's good to stay in touch. It's good to keep him accountable, and he can keep us accountable. Like, what are things that he needs from us? You know, those are conversations that should be had on a regular basis, quarterly or whatever. And then with Preserve, ongoing projects, these are all things that I think as a committee, we're doing a really good job of just kind of staying on top of. I just don't want to let off the gas too much. And with summer, you know, we're going to see a lot of change with, you know, growth and things like that. So it's going to be important that we stay aware. The neighborhood also communicates if they notice anything. You know, we're all kind of like in this together. I'm actually really glad that some people have reached out in email to ask questions about these things. You know, you guys brought to my attention, like others, about the quality lag. So those are important pieces that make up this whole puzzle. And if people don't say anything, then there's nothing to be done unless one person, you know, has that connection and makes those steps forward. So I can't do that by myself, and I'm grateful I don't have to. So, all right. I don't have any other big projects off the top of my mind. I just think in general, you know, we're doing a good job of staying on top of these things, and we just got to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, thinking that remove and replace on the berm out here, I really think if there's any way we can do it, we should coordinate mulching that area out there if we are able to, you know, for that kind of thing. I know you have that in your agenda here. I felt it kind of went hand in hand, you know, in that area out there on High Meadows.
Yes, that would be included in the common area mulching. You know, it's
Yeah.
so. Courtney kind of took that on. She knows a couple of companies. She also knows who's done well at other properties, and the sort of the blowing in of mulch is the most efficient, cost-effective method. So she knows the companies that locally can do that and have done that really well. So I've kind of been hands-off on that particular project. When Courtney gets back, touch base with her on that. I think it would be good to tie that in with the, like you said, the remove and replace project on the berm. And then also, you know, we're gonna have other projects that are gonna really clean this neighborhood up with the tree trimming and things like that. So I think by the end of the year, we actually might see a pretty big difference in things that haven't been done. The tree trimming that was done was only like entryways, and it was done for the lighting. So what you saw was really presentation purposes for a lot of that, but
Yeah.
not for like the oaks and things like that.
When you use a particular vendor, would you think or consider giving the contact information so that homeowners could also reach out and have their mulch blown in and other things?
Oh, with the mulching company? Yeah, we want to try and see if they would accommodate some sort of group discount for personal properties. Absolutely, it's a great idea. I think there's already discussion, and I had posted this on Facebook, but there's discussion about getting a pressure washing company out here to do the common area, like the sidewalks and things like that, clubhouse, and they would give us a group discount as well. You know, so if you wanted your home power washed, your roofs, whatever it was, they would be able to do it at a better rate than say if you were to do it independently. Some people have already purchased and done that stuff, so unfortunately they would miss out on that opportunity. But I think we should be able to access that with every vendor.
Right, but if we know that from January 10th, they start power washing like they do mowing,
Yeah.
and we just write the check to XYZ company, and we can leave it at the office, and they know, you know.
Unfortunately, power washing wasn't inside the umbrella of the landscape committee. Otherwise, I think we would have had that schedule. But it's a good idea. I think we should have a timing of when these things are going to happen. When we
A
can expect
calendar
it.
of events,
Yes.
so that, so that people can sign up and pay up.
Yeah, I agree. I'll bring that forward to our board and our property manager and see what we can do for that, because I think it's a great idea. It's right in line with everything that we've been doing with communication, so it'll just add to the ability to sort of be involved in the progress of this whole neighborhood. Yeah, okay. And we've covered tree trimming. You know, like I said, I got to get that proposal back. And then I think once we have the total number for all common area trees, we'd like to sort of bid that out to one or two companies, more to see if there's a big difference in cost. If not, we're going to stick with CPM because they are our vendor. They know what they're doing. They've already done it for us. They did a great job, and unfortunately, the timing with the lighting company was a little bit of a thing, but we're going to be ahead of that this time for sure. All right, Tony, I'm going to pull you in on this one now. We got two areas that you've been working on: holiday lighting and work order review processing.
Okay, holiday lighting is a two-part problem. The first part has to do with the electrical infrastructure. We've been trying to get some vendors out to.
Make sure you speak up a little bit.
We've been trying to get some vendors out to do a preliminary survey and give us a proposal. We've had two companies come out already. The third one was a no-show. We have another company coming out next week to give us their assessment and proposal of what it's going to take to upgrade and repair our electrical structure. Apparently that was part of the problem last year with the holiday lights. And so they'll be looking at that. In addition to that, we have had three companies come out to provide proposals for holiday lighting for the coming year. And Michelle was there for those. And it's not a dramatic change in what we've done in previous years. Some suggestions were to light up the island gantry out from the clubhouse, but unfortunately there's no power at this point. But there is a plan in the proposals to upgrade the entrance, the main entrance, and add additional lights to the center island that goes all the way through to the guardhouse and beyond. It looks like all question there is, you know, with the third vendor, we'll find out what that person's perspective is, but one of the two vendors that have already bid has proposed we replace a lot of our timers and electrical outlets. Feels that they have issues associated with them. May have caused some of the outages last year due to shortages from water. So he's proposing replacing all of those so that we can get a warranty for a year to make sure that we get through the season and that we don't have future problems. In addition, though he couldn't tell us, this one particular memory, he suspects that one of the issues we may have experienced, especially at the main entrance, is that we had too much draw on electricity, too many lights for the number of outlets. So his proposal includes adding an outlet, wiring for the main entrance so that we're not putting that electrical burden on these one or two outlets. And I think that's it. So we're hoping to have a decision in the next few weeks. We wanted to wait for the third electrical vendor just to see. And the first vendor that came through is somebody we've used before. In fact, the company we used last year. But I think it was a more favorable reaction to the second vendor this time around. Work orders. We missed our last meeting due to scheduling problems. Courtney is out. The number of requests have gone down, which, you know, for the last several months, the biggest issue is really more about getting the reports. The system that they use in the process that takes place is very manual. Any requests you submit, whether they're by phone or electronically through the website, all have to be manually input by Courtney. And then as the work is done, they have to be manually updated. So, you know, there's a lot of back and forth between SAO, Coastal, or whatever to get those done. Hoping we can get some of that resolved because it's a very, you know, to me it seems like a very basic, an a la carte kind of menu. You have to go through a menu of things to select to produce these reports. And I've yet to see that any two consecutive ones look alike. So I think we're making progress. We've had a few older issues that are still unresolved because of the need to find a vendor to make the repairs that were caused, but the rest of it seems to look better. And I think the good news is that having these meetings has worked out well because we not only have George involved, we have SAO, we have Courtney, and I think just that dialogue in itself has been a positive thing, as opposed to you know, the passing conversations that we used to have.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any future of like an upgraded system that you've heard of?
I think here they have, the castle management has another system, but they only use it for other applications, condominiums. And that might be an easier one to use, but this, the one we have is the most current, and the only one we've heard about that they have to use. So it's used not only in our property, but other properties that castle manages.
Would you say like overall though the system is working?
Yes, yeah, it works. I think it's just a little bit more manual. So what I suggested to Courtney, maybe what we do is we create something like a menu to make sure that every month when we go through and ask for these reports, that we always click the right buttons and ask for the same time frame.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just out of curiosity, what's it written in? What
I
language?
don't know.
Okay.
I'm not even sure 100% that it's a castle's homegrown system.
Oh, so that's third party. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, Tony, thank you for that update on both of those. Look forward to seeing like who we land with on the holiday lighting and just getting that locked in because I think it'd probably happen around the same time we lock in the tree trimming.
Yes.
And so we'll have to coordinate that.
I will mention that one of the vendors that came out for the holiday lighting commented that in adding some additional lighting to the main entrance, there's gonna be a need to trim some trees by the monuments. So, Courtney has the information
respond saying that they were gonna be trimmed, or is she not
She,
sure?
I think she said we would take care of it.
Okay,
The only thing I was gonna talk to you about when we met is that their schedule for implementation is a lot sooner than we've been used to in the past. So they're looking to come out and start the work in September.
and how long would we have the lights for, do you know that? Like,
Well, right now it's planned as it was last year, I think it was to the middle of January. What they want is, all the vendors want half of it up front, they and then they will charge us the balance of the amount once they actually turn on the lights, as they call it. So that timing is up to us.
okay,
But it sounded encouraging, at least, at least one of the vendors has multiple vehicles in the area that do other adjacent properties. And I think we felt good about talking with all of the companies.
awesome, okay. Very cool. All right, last little section here, homeowner Q&A. So I've gotten a couple of outside questions, I think some of which we've already touched on here. One of them, though, what came from someone on Facebook. Can CPM pick up yard waste on Fridays in preparation for the weekend? My question then would be, if they can, what would that require a cost? So I do believe that's an added cost. I don't know what it would entail, but I think it's worthwhile question asking them. You know,
What's their schedule now to do it?
they're picking up, they're taking away debris as they cut it. So on their trim days and stuff, they're removing trimmings and all that. I think the question comes down to homeowners doing trimming after they've done their own cleanup. That shows up on Friday, but then that stuff doesn't get picked up over the weekend by anybody. Our landscaping pickup is on Wednesdays.
Right, that's outside of CPM.
Yes, right.
Well, when does CPM pick up palm fronds here and there?
Not if they didn't put it there. They don't pick up. If I cut down my palms on Thursday, they're not picking it up on Thursday, Friday.
So CPM doesn't pick up anything that they don't cut down?
Correct.
Oh,
That's correct. So that's why the goal would be, if you're going to be trimming and cutting, you want to do it before Wednesday, and that way it'll be picked up. If you're cutting and trimming after that day, I mean, I guess ultimately not everyone can do that, but that would be ideal.
But there's a difference between cutting stuff down. My thing is, we have palm fronds that fall after Wednesday, and then you put them out there and there's gonna be a couple. That's not a big deal if you run by, pick them up and take them. Now, if somebody decides they wanna cut everything down, that's another story. You know, I think just an occasional palm frond, it falls from your tree,
Yeah.
they run to the neighborhood and can see that people didn't strip their, and put it out there to go, there's a difference.
Yeah. No, I understand that. One of the things I've had to do personally, because they fall in the back and I'm on the preserve, so some of them I have an easement and they'll fall in that easement. I'll leave it there. I'll just it can stay there until Tuesday, and then I'll pull it all around, and then Wednesday morning, the whole collection will show up. If I go and I do that piecemeal, I'm dropping palms like every other day. Sometimes it feels like.
Yeah, but we have palm fronds fall and then they fall over your plants.
Yeah, right.
They're not messing
You don't
up.
want, you don't want them sitting on there. But that's what I mean. Like sometimes I have it where I'll have a bush, my fence, and then the easement, and they'll land on top of the fence. I'll just pull them back into the easement. I'll let them lay there until Tuesday. Yeah.
Well, the other thing, you said there's a Wednesday pickup on the
Yes.
county, but then if there's a huge pile, they don't pick those up.
No, you have to call the
That's-
law.
Yeah, you gotta call and arrange those to be picked up, and you see those laying there for days and weeks sometimes at a time, because people don't understand that they've gotta make that phone call to get those picked up. They're not automatically picked up by that truck that comes around every Wednesday.
But that would be bulk, yes, they have to call for the bulk. You can put out 3 cubic yards without having to call for the bulk pickup.
I think.
But that happens also when people just put like an old refrigerator out. Without calling, they just put it out to the curb.
Hoping that bulk trash gets
And
it.
they do a lot of times like on a Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Can't they be observant to the rest of the people in the community? Maybe that's something Courtney could actually.
Yeah, but
say
that's
somewhere.
that's when they had an opportunity to get the manpower to get it to the curb.
Oh, right, so they have like a friend or whatever to help them that
Right.
way. Yeah. I know. I mean, yeah, there's always going to be something. I know that. I think the way we can improve some of these matters is informing. So what I want to do is put out how easy is it to place that custom order for pickup, right?
Right.
What's the number? Who's the company? Put that information up there and make it so that if you haven't been able to do that or you're thinking about it, this is the way you can do it.
Right.
So.
Do we pay, does the HOA pay for garbage or trash pickup? It's part of your taxes,
I believe it's the county.
Part of your tax.
It's like waste management.
Your taxes.
it's part of the
You pay
tax.
for it in your real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing I noticed too, and this is just on my property, but one area of shrubs was they did a hard cut. Does anybody else experience a hard cut on any of their bushes, like a real deep cut at all? Did you?
Fire bushes.
So, okay, so that's I think what they cut on mine. So that must be the season to do that. You know, like it doesn't look great, but
The way to avoid that, if you don't want them cutting your bushes, I don't know what they're called in Florida, but up in north, the lollipops to mark the snow, so that the snowplow does your driveway.
Reflectors.
Reflectors, okay. You put a reflector there, and they won't cut it at all, because we have some things we're trying to grow, and we don't want them cutting them down.
It would be really nice to be able to get an answer if there's a universal red or blue or whatever it is, don't touch.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
but
reflectors.
Upstate used to have red reflectors and they leave alone kind of thing.
Yeah,
And, yeah,
lollipops, but you gotta have them on a stick, so that's why we all call them lollipops.
yeah, you can buy them on Depot for next.
Right.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, I've not seen them here, but I'm not seeing it. Okay.
Yeah, I was just curious if it was like timely for CPM to start doing that to some plants. I know for a fact those shrubs, I mean, they were there, I think the house was built, so they're old, so it's kind of thin, so I imagine they're doing it because it does help them kind of grow back
Yes.
thicker. But initially, it's like surprising. I come home and like, they're gone.
Well, that's what I complained about opposite me completely. It looked like they had done a wonderful cut job, sliced it down.
I think that was when we had Brightview doing cleanup.
It was
Is
like,
yeah.
did you ever find out if there's water on that land?
No, we don't know that yet. I think Doug is going to take a look at that when he ends up getting to that street on the wet checks. I believe that's kind of his timing of it. But yeah, did you get in touch with him or Courtney at all with your project? 'Cause I know-
No, because the first question has to be answered, is there water? Nothing can be done without water.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Does anybody have any other questions or suggestions? Anything you feel like maybe is missing this stage in the whole landscape committee workload?
Just the calendar, if we could do it, whatever the calendar.
The calendar? Yes, well, so I think the online calendar needs to be updated for at least this month especially, but for the summer.
Who may make a call this week with all this rain on whether or not CPM will involve this week, so we don't get ruts and mud.
They should know not to do that.
They won't. You
Does
just,
Alceo make the call? Does Courtney make the call? Like, don't show up kind of thing?
I think we're
George
going
make
to
that
just,
call?
Nelson is probably going to tell LSAO, you guys can't mow on a day like this, but I imagine LSAO was going to come out here first to assess it, because that's usually what he does. He'll walk and he'll be able to tell it's too soft, and then he won't have to do it. Now, if there are dry areas, they'll do it, you know? They'll get what they can get, but if it's overall, like a day like today, they're not going to do it, you know? They're going to wait until it dries up. Yeah, so that'll just be a delay, but that's the summer, you know? I I mean, if there's anything that we can expect in Florida, it's that, you know, our mow schedule is gonna be shifted around over the summertime, so, we just have to be patient with that, but they'll take care of it. I believe that. Okay. Good? We'll call it? Excellent. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Has